Welcome back to Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Tony G. Alvarado. I'm so glad to have you with us in season 8 of the podcast. Yes, this is season 8, the third episode of season 8 to be exact. And I am so excited about all the previous seasons and all the previous guests who have been on with us, having these intriguing, informational, inspirational conversations on self care, health, wellness, mental health, fitness motivation. I'm rocking my fitness motivation shirt today because guess what? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about fitness motivation with a dear friend of mine who is motivating me, and she's doing something pretty awesome. You'll hear about it in just a minute. I'll be right back right after this with our podcast guest for this week. All right, let's do this. Okay. So we have with us today Dr. Valerie Bridgeman. She is our guest on today. She is no stranger to the Harmonize Your Life podcast. Dr. Bridgeman has been a guest on this podcast before, talking about holistic living and sharing with us about her holistic journey, her weight loss journey, and some other aspects of how she lives her life holistically. Today, we're going to be talking to Dr. Bridgeman, and she's going to be sharing with us about something pretty awesome that she has been doing over the last year and a half. So listen, Dr. Valerie Bridgeman is the founder and president of Woman Preach Inc., the premier nonprofit organization that brings preachers into full prophetic voice around issues of equity and justice in the pulpit and in the public arena. Her mission is to produce a network of preaching women and men who will use their voice in service to the gospel of Jesus Christ, especially as it relates to womanist/feminist concerns of equity and justice. She also serves as the Dean and Vice President of Academic Affairs at the Methodist Theological School in Ohio. She is an Associate Professor of Homiletics and Hebrew Bible since 2015, after having served as visiting professor for a year and a half. Dr. Bridgman has written several publications and works, which include Homiletics and Biblical Interpretation in the Oxford Encyclopedia Biblical Interpretation, a perspective on the David narratives, Rispa, and a perspective on the teachings of Jesus, the Syrophoenician woman in Mark 7:24-30, in global perspectives on the Bible. She has edited and contributed to the Africana Bible, reading Israel's scriptures from Africa and the African diaspora, with Jonah and Nahum, and co-edited Those Preaching Women, a multicultural collection produced by Judson Press. As you all can see, she is very well read. She is published. She is smart. And I'm glad to be able to call her my friend. Welcome, Valerie. Welcome to the podcast conversation today.
Hey, Tony, good to see you. Just going to say what we've said before to each other, which is we don't want people to think we're not being respectful of each other if we call each other just by our first names, because we real girlfriends as opposed to, fake. So thank you for having me on the podcast.
Good.
I use this podcast for my walk and talk, so I'm glad to be a part of it.
Good. And you oftentimes when you're listening after you've listened to an episode, you'll text me, "Great episode today,"
Yep.
and I appreciate your support of the podcast over these 2.5, almost 3 years now that we've been doing this. I can't believe it.
It's good work.
Years. Oh
Yeah.
Lord. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So, Valerie, share with us some of your story about your weight loss journey. I know when you were on before, you shared some things concerning holistic living, which included your weight loss. Um, and you talked to us about just the whole of life and how we have to live our lives holistically. But just for those who've never heard you before, this is the first time hearing you, share a little bit about your weight loss journey, because I personally have witnessed your transformation in your weight loss journey, and it has just been amazing.
Right. So at the height of the most I've ever weighed, I was 182 pounds um, in 2019 when my doctor said to me, I'm gonna need you to lose weight because I'm gonna put you on insulin. Well, she said, I'm gonna put you on insulin. And I said, no, ma'am, you're not. What do I need to do? She said, I need you to lose 10% of your weight, which would be 18 pounds, which would put me at 164. And at 4 feet 11 and a half, that's still not enough weight. And I knew that. And I was like, oh, okay. So this was 2019 in November, December actually. And
Mhm.
I started walking. My knees hurt the whole 9 yards, but I was like, well, what I know I can do is walk. And I started drinking lots of water. The Lord literally said to me, drink water, breathe deeply, and walk, move your muscles.
I remember you posted that on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put down walk, drink water, breathe deeply, and walk,
And,
and
and move your muscles.
move your muscles. And I'm
Right.
gonna tell you, you inspired me because this was like at the height of the pandemic in 2020, and you were walking on that beautiful farm that you live on
Mhm.
there in Ohio,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my God, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I had the pleasure of coming to Ohio and walking with you. Y'all, Valerie can walk too. She walk as fast as some people run.
Yeah, but I couldn't do it before I started, in the late 2019 into 2020. Like I literally had been inactive. And as somebody who had been an athlete, I was just out of shape. I was just not in good health. And the goal, even though it led to losing weight, the goal was to be in good health, to get my A1C number down. It's at 5.3 now,
Good.
and it's been that for a couple of years now,
Okay.
and to get my blood pressure under control. My doctor took me off of all but two medicines. I have a thyroid condition, so I'll always have to take that
Same.
medicine.
Same.
And I do still take a blood pressure medicine because my blood pressure spikes from time to time.
Mhm.
But going from 7 meds to 2.
Okay, that's progress, and it's good. And listen, something you said that I hope didn't that people caught, and I don't want to gloss over it. You said the goal was not really weight loss. Weight loss was the byproduct, but the goal was to be healthy.
Right, and that's absolutely true.
And
I
that's what fitness motivation is all about, being healthy.
Right, so I didn't even start thinking about people always ask me, "Well, what did you do to lose weight? What diet was you on?" I was like, "I was never on a diet, ever on a diet." Now, I did control my calorie intake because I started paying attention to what was going into my mouth.
Right, right.
Uh, and I'm not sweet is not something I had to worry about. I like desserts and I'll have dessert with a meal, but
Yeah.
I wasn't
I,
that wasn't my problem. My problem is an American problem, which is we just eat too much. Like, no, seriously, if you go to a restaurant,
truth.
what we
Our
do,
meals are too our portions are too big.
our portions are 2 times, sometimes 3 times more than we should be eating in a meal.
It's the truth. It is the truth.
And when you go to a foreign country, like when I was in Paris or in South Africa, any number of places, they serve you a real portion and you look at it and go, "Oh, this is what a portion is supposed to look like." Because we upsize, big size, whatever, everything.
Yeah, yeah. We want everything huge.
Right.
Yeah.
And so some of it was, again, it wasn't dieting, it was eat an appropriate portion of food and eat to fuel your body, not to fuel your emotions. So sometimes we eat because we are lonely or we're mad or we are
Hmm.
whatever. We're feeding our emotions and not our bodies, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So So, so I didn't diet, but I did start paying attention to why are you eating? Are you hungry or are you thirsty?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when we're thirsty, we eat. And
Yeah.
what we actually are is thirsty.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really hungry or are you just mad? you know, Whatever. And then when
Food.
and then when I wanted something that other people might not consider healthy, I would like fried chicken. I
Okay.
would I would wait a minute to see if that was just nostalgia,
Okay.
whatever. What are
Okay.
what are you actually what's
What's behind this
what's
craving?
behind this craving,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And and I'd give myself a day or two, and if I still want it, I'd go get it. End
And
of
be done with it.
and be done with it. Right.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So you said something one time we were talking. You said because you walk a lot.
Yes.
So you started walking before you started doing the runs. I mean,
Exactly.
you had been running, but you stopped running for a minute. But
Right.
before you started back running, you started walking.
Yeah, because I had gained all this weight. So, my first marathon was for my 40th birthday, 1999. And at the time, I think I weighed 140 pounds when I ran it. And I ran with a team and trained with them and whatever. So from there up until 2015 or so, I would run off and on half marathons and marathons. I won't ever have to do another marathon. I'm over that. I'm really over that. I'm going to go with you and support you when you do your first one
Yes, please,
for
please.
your
I need all the
60th.
support I can get
Yeah, for your 60th, I'm going to run a half marathon and then I'm going to go.
and wait on me.
Yeah, probably go get a
Go get a
massage
nap.
while you're
Go get
finishing.
go get a shower. Go get you a meal. Go do whatever you want to do. Go
No,
shopping
I'm gonna wait
because
for
it's
you to
gonna
have
take
a
you that
meal.
long to finish.
I'm gonna wait for you to have the meal, but I'm probably gonna get a massage. I'm probably
They're
gonna go
probably
get
gonna have to put me in ice first.
well, you know what? If you get a really good massage right within 2 hours, you won't have to be in ice.
Okay, okay.
If you
All
drink
right.
lots of
Keep
water and
talking
get a
to me
really
now.
good,
Keep talking to me. I need it. But
I
go
know
on.
you
This ain't
said.
about me. This about you.
Oh, I know. But
So you
anyway,
started
so
walking.
so I got sick and then just started gaining all this weight because I just wasn't taking care of myself. And this was after I had done a half marathon in 2015. So that's when I started the notion of, oh, I want to do a half marathon in every state because there was a woman who was running. I was in Cleveland, who was running, and I saw her in front of me. I wasn't quite as prepared to run this half marathon physically as I thought I was, but I was
Mhm.
like, well, I'm going to pace with her. And I didn't know at the time that she was 72, but I was like, I'm going to pace with
Wow.
her.
72.
And so I paced with her. We were not the last people to cross the finish line. But when I crossed the finish line, I said, "Thank you for letting me pace with you." Her name was Barbara. We talked, and she said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm doing a half marathon in every state." I was like, "Wow." And she said, "I'm 72." Then I was like, "Wow." And she told me that she had started running for the very first time when she was 67. Now
Wow.
I ran track in high school and so I
Uh-huh.
was like,
Uh-huh.
"You literally never ran before you were 67?"
Wow.
She said,
67?
"No." 67. And she did it because she had
That's like my friend Sheila Agnew. I think she said she started running in her 60s, but I don't think she was quite that far in her 60s, but I remember talking to her and she said she did her first marathon in her 60s. So, my goal is to run a full marathon next year at my 60th birthday. Please pray for me. We'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
so she started running at 67, and then she told me about this 50 state half marathon challenge where you run a half marathon in every state plus DC. DC is the bonus. You don't actually have to run DC, but I'm going to do DC. So I'll do the 50 plus one. And that race counts as my Ohio race. That 2015 race
Okay.
counts as
Okay.
my
Okay.
Ohio race.
So how you lost, because I've watched your transformation with weight
Right.
loss. How much weight did you lose when you started walking?
Okay, so from 2016 to 2019, I just started gaining weight.
Hmm.
I got sick. I have a autoimmune disease. I got sick. I got tired. I got depressed.
Okay.
Kind of all of that, and gained all this weight. And at my height was 182, and when the doctor said, I'm going to put you on insulin, I said, no, ma'am, what you got? What do I need to do? She said, lose 10% of your weight. And I was like, well, 10% of my weight will take me to 164. That's not enough. I need to lose weight. And this was in December 2019. And I prayed
And that was right before the pandemic.
right before the pandemic, and
Mhm.
I prayed, and God said to me, breathe deeply. Side note, uh, what we know from COVID-19 is deep breaths help people's
Yes.
lungs.
Right.
So before we even knew there was a pandemic, the Spirit of God said, breathe deep, drink lots of water,
Okay.
and move your body.
And move your body.
And so when I started, I could barely walk 2 miles. My knees hurt, the whole 9 yards. It hurt. Fun fact: every pound you lose is 5 pounds off of the pressure on your knees.
Wow.
Every pound you lose
Did y'all hear that?
is
Every
5 pounds
pound you lose, it equates to 5 pounds of pressure off your
pressure.
knees.
Right.
Wow.
So I just started walking, and I live on the campus where I work, and it has a 2 mile walkabout.
Yes, it's
Uh,
beautiful.
uh, um, Trail. So I started by walking on campus. But Central Ohio, as you know, because you came and walked with me, has all these metro parks. Like
Yes. It's
you
beautiful.
would,
As many times as I've been to Ohio, because we have family there, Columbus, my
right?
husband's from Columbus, Ohio. My daughter's there in school. Of course, family, friends, all of that. And I've never realized so many parks,
Yes,
beautiful parks there in
walking parks.
yes, walking. That's what I mean.
So
The
I
Olentangy
so I
River,
made a
walking
list
along
of
that Olentangy River was just beautiful. Walking there
right.
with you. Now, let me tell y'all something. Walking with Dr. Valerie, walking with Valerie is something because she walked faster than some people run. Okay, go ahead. I just need to say that. Little short legs. She can just go.
I remember
Okay,
you were like, I said, "Do I need to slow down?" You were like, "No, I'm gonna keep up with you."
girl.
And then I slowed down because I got it. I got
And
it.
then, and then I met you, and then I was brave enough to meet you in Greenville, South Carolina, to do a half marathon, one of your halves with you.
Yeah,
Of course, I let you go right on, and you met me at the finish line. Thank you.
yeah. Um, but anyway, what I did is I made a list of all the metro parks in central, in Franklin County, which is 30
Uh-huh.
metro parks. They all have hiking trails.
Okay.
And I made a list of all of the preservation parks in Delaware County, where I live, just up the road, which
Okay.
is like 14. So there's 40 parks. And I just started walking the metro parks and campus. So I would drive to a metro park. The furthest one out from me is like 25 miles. So during the pandemic, I walked the metro parks or the campus every day.
I remember.
And I slowly got up to 5 miles a day. And then on the weekends, I started walking longer walks, like I would hike on the weekends, anywhere from 10 to 12 miles. And then it occurred to me in the middle of the hikes, oh, if you're walking 10, 12 miles a, on a hike, you can
Uh-huh.
do a half marathon, which is 13.1 miles. And,
Wow. Wow.
you can do that. And and then I was like, okay, I need to get back on this bucket list of mine.
Okay.
So which is how I started thinking again about the conversation I had had with Barbara in 2015. That
Okay.
was 2020. I started thinking about it, but I also knew I wanted to actually go to the States. So I didn't
Okay.
want to do any of the virtual runs.
Okay.
Everybody had virtual runs where you could run in
Yeah.
your area
You wanted
and
to
then
go
post it.
visit, you wanted to go to those states,
I
each 50,
wanted to actually
50 states plus DC,
right.
51. going there and actually running in those
Right.
states. Okay.
Right.
Excellent.
And I built an ambitious calendar of when I would finish. The goal was that I would finish the 50th one in Hawaii for my birthday in 2024 when I turned 65. Well,
Okay.
that's not going to happen. I'm still going to run for my Hawaii for my
Well, I'm
65th.
going with you.
Yes, I'm still going to run Hawaii for my 65th, but I won't have finished all the runs just because I've already had to cancel 4 this
Yeah.
year. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't run in August at all because had to
You know,
cancel.
that's interesting because, and I want to interject here. So in fit, we're talking about fitness motivation,
Right.
right? And a lot of people that are listening to this podcast today have we set goals, we set fitness goals. I set a goal to run a full marathon
Yes.
next year for my 60th birthday. But what something that you just did in what you just shared, you demonstrated how we can also make adjustments to our goal
Yes.
and still work toward the goal, but make the adjustment. What can you say about that? Because sometimes we beat ourselves up trying to make it happen because we said that's what we were going to do. I know
Right.
I do. Man, I'm just going to speak for Tony.
Yeah, I think that's typical of humans. I don't think that's just Tony. And I think women probably do it more than men. At least anecdotally, that's my experience. So I don't have anything to back that up in theory, but I'm just saying what I see that we as women often will beat ourselves up if we have to move the goalposts, and we say, I felt bad for a moment. I was like, yeah, this is an unrealistic and overly ambitious schedule. So I need to change this because also you do work for a living and there are times when you're going to have to switch things and you do preach for people and there are times when you're going to have to switch things, right? um so that was sort of recalibrating, like you're being overly ambitious, Valerie. You can make this goal, and as long as you're healthy and working on your health, you'll make it. There are people running who are in their 80s. This guy, 82 years old, just hit his 200th half marathon.
Wow.
I don't know when he started, but I'm like, you're 82. When I did the Oregon run, there was a guy that was 75. He did race walking, and I'm telling you, he crossed the finish line before half the people running. He was
Wow.
just walking, right? And I was like, okay. So
That's
I
like
you
walking, really.
You asked me about getting motivation. I get motivation from the people around me. I'm watching as
Okay.
they complete their goals. I'm like, that's motivating. That helps me say, okay, this goal can actually be met. And then when I hear, oh, I just started at 70, I just started the 50 half marathon at 70, I'm like, yeah, you can't be complaining.
Well, you got me rethinking my goal. Honestly, I've been contemplating doing what you're doing, and I still I don't know. I still want to say that I've run a full marathon, so I'm probably going to go on and do that. But I think after that, I'm going to do what you're doing and do the 50 state challenge.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
so, and you already have one.
I do.
You have this,
Well,
you
I
already
actually have
have
two. I
it,
have
right.
Georgia.
That's right. You already have 2 towards your 50.
Yeah, I already have two. I have Georgia. I have South Carolina. I mean, yeah, South Carolina, and Georgia, because I did the half in Savannah this year,
That's
and I
right.
did the half in Greenville with you.
See? You're already 2 toward 50. See how
I'm
that
already
goes?
450. See, yeah, I mean, you really have helped me kind of
You're
stay
1/25th
motivated,
of the way there.
huh?
You're 1/25th of the way there.
Look, and that's better than nowhere, right?
That's right.
That's better than nowhere. So so how many have you run so far since you started? How many have you run?
The ones that I've counted. Now I've actually run more than I can count toward the goal, right? Because I did 3 or 4 in Tennessee when I lived in Memphis. I did 3 or 4 in
Okay,
Georgia. I've done 3 in Ohio, but you can only count 1 toward the 50 goal. I think
okay.
I'm gonna count some of those if I get ambitious to go to 100, because that doesn't have to be every state. That
Ooh,
if
okay.
I
Just
decide,
running 100 halves, no
yeah,
matter where you run.
yeah.
Okay.
But right now, I'm not thinking about that. Except I thought when I saw the 70-something-year-old man had done 200, I thought, oh, this is doable. You talking about encouragement, right? I'm like, oh, that's doable then. Because also, I so when I was in Arizona, I ran my first one this year in Arizona. I I there was a yogi there, Buddhist yogi, and they taught me a way to stand. I think I told you about this.
You mentioned that to me when we ran in South Carolina.
Yeah, the 11, standing at 11, where your feet are at 11.
Okay.
And I had already taken a lot of pressure off my knees, but learning how to re-walk at 11 took even more pressure off my knees, because the goal is to finish. I'm not trying to set any other record.
The goal is to finish. That's what I say. The
I'm
goal.
not trying to be number one in my age group. I'm just trying to finish, you know.
And
So
not have to be taken away by ambulance.
listen, when we did Pennsylvania, a friend ran with me in Pennsylvania. We were the last ones across. She got cramps, and I slowed down to finish with her. They were getting ready to take the whole thing down, the finish line down, and we were screaming, "Wait!" so we could get our time in. I was like, "Oh, please don't take up that strip, because once they turn the time off,
Right, right. It's
you
over.
can't get credit for it." And it was
Right. You
after
can.
3 hours, but guess what? Pennsylvania's done.
Okay.
You
Well, I
know what I
saw
mean?
last week you were getting ready to do number 18.
Yeah,
You were getting ready, and it got canceled.
yeah. I was in Wisconsin, all of the cost that was, and it was some cost. And we were on the course. The sun was out when we started, by the way. I called you and I said, I'm gonna need, or texted you, I think. I was like, I'm gonna need you to
Oh,
pray.
you called me. You said, I need you to pray for me. I'm getting ready to run this race. Pray for me.
One, because it had been 6 weeks since I ran one,
Okay.
and I didn't, even though I had done the same kind of training, I didn't feel as ready as I usually feel. And partly, I think, because I had been doing them so regularly,
Okay. And you
and
had that
partly also because I had picked up 7 pounds,
break. Okay.
so picked up a little more weight. But that's not significant enough for it to make that big of a difference.
Okay. Hmm.
But that's what was on my mind when I called you. So the sun was out when we started. And they said, "Oh, we're watching the weather. They say a storm will roll in. If the storm rolls in, we're going to stop the clock and let everybody shelter in place, you know, and then we will start the clock back and you can start running again." Well, the storm rolled in bigger than they thought it was going to run in.
Wow. Wow.
And I mean, when I say lightning and thundering and downpour, like I was soaked. And they pulled the race, and they weren't able to pick everybody up off of the track. Some people got rides back to by the EMS or the trucks that they have. You know how they have trucks along the way,
Yes.
and bikers and whatever. And we saw that I was pacing with somebody, because pacing
Hmm.
with somebody helps you finish.
Hmm. It does.
And we saw people running back toward us. We was like, this is not a turnaround race. So why are they coming back? And that's when we learned the race has been canceled. You can check on the website, and sure enough, on the website, race canceled.
Wow.
And so we started back, and thankfully, one of the women that was kind of pacing with us, her husband was tracking her on the race, and he rolled out and got her. And then they let me ride back with them to my car, soaking wet. And I was disappointed that I couldn't finish Wisconsin. I was like, oh, so I gotta get Wisconsin back on schedule. I don't know when that's gonna be,
Okay.
but probably 2024, because I've already scheduled out 2023.
So talk about your process then. How do you How do you what's the process you go through to decide where you're going, when you're going, which
Well,
race? Because I'm sure there's more than one race in these states.
yeah, yeah. So I use two race sites. My main one is halfmarathons.net. So that's the one that's my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
And I pick a state that I haven't been to
Mm-hmm.
and pick a city, and I try to pick a city where I know somebody, where I
Mm-hmm.
have friends,
Mm-hmm.
because I like the notion. I've had somebody run with me in four different places, so that's been
Mm-hmm.
fun.
Okay.
To find somebody who wants to either run with me or meet me for lunch afterwards. And
Okay.
sometimes also let me preach for them on Sunday, you
Okay.
know,
Okay. So you're
uh,
killing two birds with one stone. You
or
actually turn it into a
or
ministry.
three birds with one stone, seeing a friend, doing my
Oh,
ministry, and finishing a half marathon.
in coaching, we call that habit stacking.
Okay, habit
Where
stacking.
yeah, like, so if you know you're going to be walking, you know that you're a morning person and you're going to do morning prayer. Well, why not walk and pray at the same time? Like, God
This
is
is
not
what I do.
right. But God is not offended that you're walking and praying. You got to be,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So doing something that you know you're going to do, but also, as we call it, killing two birds or three birds with one stone, habit stacking. And I like that. So you're seeing a friend, you're meeting your run goal, and you're also doing ministry because you
Right.
you usually have a place that you can go and preach while you're there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's been really interesting because I never before then, I've been in ministry over 45 years. I've never before this started said to a ministry friend, "Hey, I'm going to be in the area. Do you need a preacher this weekend?" I've never done that. I've done that now two or three times, and either they say, "No, I got somebody else preaching," or I've been out of my pulpit a couple of times. I can't be. I'm like, "That's cool. Can we meet for lunch? Can I catch up
Right,
with
right.
you?" Like I'm not offended by that, and it took me a lot to say to I'm not calling up strange people saying, "Can I preach for you?" These are people I know and who
These
know
are
my
relationships.
ministry,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
I'm not
And
like
I'm sure that they're being blessed too.
yeah, and I thank God for that.
Yeah,
That I have those kind of ministry relationships and
yeah.
friends that I can say, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna be in." I called one friend and I said, "I know this is strange. I ain't never asked you." And she was like, "No, you on my list." And that's a good date. So,
Okay, see,
yeah.
see. Well,
So,
so is it expensive running these races? You got to
oh
take
my
care of
God.
lodging, you got to take care of your hotel, lodging, your airfare to get to these states, unless you're driving. Like last week, I think you drove
Yeah.
to
Well, I,
Wisconsin.
I actually didn't drive to Wisconsin, but I drove to West Virginia. I
Okay,
I drove to Kentucky. There are places I've driven to do
okay,
it's an expensive bucket list. Now,
okay,
so these first few races, um, I had miles from traveling, left over from before the pandemic.
right.
So I didn't pay anything for hotel. I mean, airfare
Uh huh.
for most of the runs that I've done so far, and I had some hotel points, so I used
Yeah.
those.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, as I said, stayed with friends here and there. But it's the places where it's cost. But as I say to people, it's my bucket list. You get to pay for, so I don't spend my money on very much else.
Right, right,
This
right.
is this is my bucket
And
list.
that's important. I mean, how many women do not set goals like this, make a bucket list, and not um go after it?
Right. I mean, here's the thing. We actually do probably spend about the same amount of money,
Hmm.
but on other things,
Wow.
right? I actually don't need new clothes. Okay. So there are ways that I just don't spend my money because this is my bucket list for the time being, you know.
Wow.
And
So
then when I
when
when
you
I
have
have
a bucket list, it's important that you set up your life and your finances, your time, all of that around completing that bucket list, which means you may have to forego some other things.
Yeah, actually. And when I do speak or have or teach in other environments, none of that is in my budget. None of that extra income is in my budget. So it goes into my bucket list.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
It goes into my savings for my bucket list. So yeah, that's I I can't remember what when it was. Maybe about a month ago, a colleague friend said to me, "Hey, how can we support your run? Because you're inspiring all of us." And I was like, I am not. She was like, set up a GoFundMe. I was like, I am not doing that because it's my bucket list. But here's my Cash App if you want to send something. And literally, several people sent something, and it paid for one of the runs, paid for the
Wow.
full run.
Wow.
Now, I'm not going to post about that. I'm not going to set up a
Yeah.
GoFundMe. I'm not going to post every run. Here's my Cash App if you want to help support this run. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I set a goal and I set a budget. I did what the scripture says, which is I counted the cost
Oh, wow.
before I went into battle.
Oh, wow. All
Who
right.
goes into battle without counting the
Out
cost?
the cost. Wow.
Who builds a house without counting the cost?
Right.
I
Right.
figured out the average amount it would cost. Now, Hawaii is going to cost me more, so I'm saving for Hawaii now.
Right. Right.
And one of my flights was like $900. That wasn't in the budget, but so I had to add to that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
In order to pull it out, because on average flights at the time were about 500. Now
Yeah,
flights
these flights are expensive right now. Oh my
are
goodness.
expensive,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so
But
I
but
just
what
like
I hear you saying though is you because you prioritize this is your goal, your bucket list, and you're motivated. You're doing the things that you need to do to stay on course with
right,
completing this goal. Even though
eh,
you've had to make some adjustments, you're
right,
still moving
right.
toward your goal. Valerie, talk.
Wait a minute, including slowing down, which
Okay.
is to say, where I was like, well, I'm gonna do two a month, two a month, two a month. Well, now I'm like, I'll do two a month ever so often, but mostly I'm gonna do one a month in 2023 and
I
2024.
I hear you. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So you may have to adjust even the amount of times you're doing it.
right. So
Okay.
by the end of this year, if all the runs that are currently on the book happen, because like I said, last week got canceled.
Yeah, you don't control that.
I have no control over weather. I have no control over the airlines, and ain't no need to get mad about that. Just don't. I'll be halfway through at the end of this year, I think. I
Mhm.
think I got about 8 more runs. 2
Okay.
in December, 2 in November, 2 in October, 2 in September. Yeah. So 8 more runs. So I'll be right at 25 if they all happen this.
Well, you are really inspiring us. I just want you to know I'm inspired. And I know that there are others when you post that you're going and you ask us to pray and then you post your pictures. It has really, it's gotten me motivated. I had already started going back into running. I had made that as a goal last year. And then we happened to talk about it. And I was like, oh my God, we have the same goal. And so thank you. You have been such a source of inspiration. Will you talk to us, Valerie, about how you stay motivated? What are some of the benefits that you're getting from these runs? But it's I know physically you said one of the byproducts is the weight loss. But what about the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect of, it's interesting because in the Bible, um, a lot of times our Christian walk is equated to athletic games and
Yeah.
athleticism. So talk to us about what you're getting spiritually from this goal, from this
Yeah.
bucket list.
So for me, I know this isn't true for everybody who walks around, but for me, it literally allows me to step outside of the stress of my work, and my work is stressful. It's not because I'm an anxious person; it's because the work is stressful.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, it, it allows me, and as you know, sometimes I'm listening to podcasts all the time. I pray. Um, sometimes I'm just taking really deep breaths to woosah, get whatever
Mm-mm.
frustrations out. And I will say, I don't have a counselor right now, which, as you know, is not normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had my counselor stepped outside of my um, insurance
Okay.
system,
Okay.
and so I just haven't been able to find anybody yet.
Mm-hmm.
But walking every day, several times a day, I do all of my meetings now as walking when I can.
Wow.
You
Okay.
know, like if somebody calls me for a meeting, I just put my earbuds in and I walk while we're talking.
Okay. Okay. I hear you.
I
Okay.
just do walking talks. I meet with faculty that way. Come on, let's go walking. One, I know they ain't gonna walk as far as I want to walk, so they ain't gonna waste their time talking. We're gonna talk about what you want to talk about. As opposed to if you were sitting in my office taking up an hour of my time as opposed to 30 minutes of my time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But that's 20
And
to
I know
30,
they can't keep up with you because, girl, I'm telling you, you be walking like the Energizer Bunny.
but that's 20 to 30 minutes of
Okay.
movement
Okay.
for my body,
Okay.
right? So, yeah, and it serves me emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Wow.
And
What-
actually educationally because I'm listening to podcasts where
Yeah.
I'm learning
So you're growing, you're learning.
things.
Yeah. It's a wonderful way to habit stack. I love it. Wow, Valerie, you are such an inspiration. Now, how old are you?
63 and a half. I'm
63
63 and a half. My
and
birthday's
a
in
half.
January.
And you talked to us about one of the ladies that you said she was 67 when she started running again,
Yes.
and she was 72 when you met her.
Yes.
Will you just say something, talk to the woman who's listening to us that thinks she's too old to go after her bucket list, whether it's something like this with fitness or whatever, particularly when it comes to fitness, because we oftentimes feel like, oh, I'm too old to run, I'm too old to walk, I may have pre-existing conditions or whatever. Like you had pre-existing conditions,
Right.
but you overcame that. So talk to the woman who is struggling with this and saying, I can't do this, I'm too old.
Right. So, you know, I will say something that I often used to say to people. I haven't said it recently, which is the way the enemy of our soul works is we either are too young or too old for whatever we want to do. You either hear that internal voice saying, you're too young for that, or you hear that internal voice saying, you're too old for that. So I remember one time someone said to me, I can't get a degree because I'll be 40 when I finish. I said, well, how old will you be if you don't get the degree
Right, right,
and live? You'll be 40
right,
without the degree that you want.
right, right.
Go get the degree. What I would say, and I is that I think with regard to fitness goals, people often try to do the all or nothing, or they do the all or nothing. I can't walk and run like Dr. Valerie. Right, you can't. But neither could I 3 years ago. I couldn't walk like Dr. Valerie 3 years ago. You know what I mean? I was out of shape. I was out, my eating was out of control. My everything was out of control. So I think I would say to people, start where you are, not where you want to be. I
Yeah.
mean, keep the goal in mind. Yes, you should keep your goal in mind, but you have to start where you are. So, no, you can't walk 8 miles a day, but you can probably walk a half a mile a day
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
or do what my doctor told me to do. This is good for people with diabetes, which is take a 15-minute walk after every meal because it will help metabolize your food,
Okay. Okay.
help control your sugar
Okay.
and your insulin intake. And so I started by walking after every meal, 15 minutes after every meal, which also meant that I actually had to eat 3 meals a day
Right,
because I
right.
was in the habit of not eating. I
Right.
would literally go and sometimes actually forget. I had to put in my calendar eat. I know that sounds crazy to people,
Yeah, yeah,
but I had to say eat breakfast because
yeah,
I hate breakfast food. I had to be okay and say, you actually don't have to eat breakfast food for breakfast.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can actually have a salad for breakfast. That's what you want anyway. Get that.
Eat
Or
that.
you can have a green smoothie because sometimes I don't feel like chewing food in the morning.
Right, 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 right. Same here.
I just don't feel like chewing the food. Or you can have a protein shake or whatever. Uh, but so the first thing is to start where you are and slowly. I like the notion of stacking and slowly add. So if you have not been paying attention to your eating, just keep a journal of what you eat. Now, most people don't like to do that because we don't like to tell ourselves the truth
Hmm.
about the 5 pieces of candy we just had. Or the whatever, you know what I'm saying, or the fact that we had french fries and fried chicken and because we quote know that healthy eating means x y and z. It's like,
Hmm.
no, tell yourself the truth about what you're doing because you can't change it if you don't tell yourself the truth about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And to look at that and start slow and
And start
start
where you
adding,
are.
because I didn't start with weights. I start with walking,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
added weights.
Hmm.
Actually, didn't add weights for 2 years. No, for 1 year. I didn't add weights until to 2021.
Wow, wow. Okay. So start where you are and
Start slow
start where you are and start slow
and
and
tell yourself the truth.
tell yourself the truth. Start where you are, start slow and tell yourself the truth. Wow, Valerie. Thank you. You are such an inspiration. I just want to let people know where they can find you. Those of you that are watching us, or hopefully you're watching us on YouTube. I want to just let you know you're listening to and watching the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self Care for Women of Color podcast with Dr. Tony Alvarado. This podcast can be found on Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify. We're also available on YouTube. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go over there, like, subscribe to the channel so that when people are searching for information and conversations like this, then our podcast goes up in the analytics, the more people that are subscribed to our channel. Please help us by doing that and share it. If these podcast conversations are helping you, please share them with someone else. Women, you can join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self Care Network as well. We have a network of women who we are working with on self care, health, and wellness. We are just your everyday woman. We're professional women. We're women in the C suite. We're pastors. We're teachers. We are mothers, grandmothers, accountants, lawyers. But we're concerned about self care for us and for our community. So come on in there. It's a wonderful community of accountability where you learn, where you grow together, and you fellowship together around self care, health, and wellness goals. All right. And you can go to my website at drtonyalvarado.com and you can find the Self Care Network there. You can go and get our bling t shirts there. I'm wearing one of them today. Hashtag fitness motivation. We have so many things there to help you and keep you encouraged on your journey. We are talking today to Dr. Valerie Bridgeman, my friend, my girlfriend, who is inspiring us to run half marathons. She has been running half marathons all over this country with a goal to run one in all 50 states plus Washington, D.C. All right. You can find her on Facebook at Valerie Bridgeman, on IG at VBridge90, and on Twitter at Dr. Valerie B. All right. Thank you again for being with us on today. Valerie, you got one last thing you want to share with us before we leave?
Yeah, just this last thing. You asked me how I stay motivated, and the way I stay motivated is being in relationship with people like you, Dr. Tony, people who I can call, or people who I'm running alongside, and I'm like, okay, you can keep doing this. And so that's how I stay motivated. I let people around me motivate me.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate, and we motivate each other. A
Yes.
wonderful benefit. All right. All right. So while I'm motivating you, you are motivating me. Thank you, sis. I love you so much.
I love you too.
Oh,
Great being with you always. Bye
always.
bye.
Bye bye. Listen, we'll see you all again next week for another intriguing conversation on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Tony G. Alvarado. See you soon. Hi, this is Dr. Tony Alvarado. I am so delighted about bringing the Harmonize Your Life podcast to you. Would you do me a favor? If you are enjoying this podcast, would you email me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com? I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. I want to know if there are any other topics that you are interested in as it relates to wellness, self-care, nutrition, or just overall bringing harmony into your life. Email me, contact me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com.